everybody. My name is John, and you're watching my 15 Minutes, which is a nightly talk by me about anything I feel like. Just something I decided to do. I'm going to do it every day for a year if I can deal with that. Today is day 24. It is January 24th. I started on January 1st of this year of 2020. And the reason is I'm 70 years old, and I just thought I'd do something for my 70th year on Earth. Maybe something my kids can look at, or even if they ever have kids of their own, they have something to show their grandfather, show their kids about their grandfather. But maybe they'll learn something about me as well. If I talk enough, certainly something's got to come out of it. Anyway, I forgot to talk about last night's picture. And it was a really pretty one. But this is also really gorgeous. I don't know what valley it is or what river is flowing off into that waterfall, but it's a beauty. It's a seriously nice picture. I hope you go back and pause on that first 10 seconds I had zoomed in on it. Anyway, we're going to go back to continuing on the discussion about marijuana, cannabis, that I started last night. I was giving a little bit of my history and how I came to enjoy pot. Anyway, so recap a little bit. I came into Vietnam on February the 10th of 1968. On February the 11th, 1968, I was turned on. The truth was, and is, that I'm not sure if I even felt anything at that point, and especially in memory. Probably not. The second time, I thought maybe, but the third time, which happened out in the field after I was assigned to my unit, I definitely felt something, and I really liked it. Unfortunately, I wasn't going to be able to experience that probably for, that was 1968, probably not until because I never saw pot again in the Army. I never saw marijuana again. I was in Kansas. Nobody out there was smoking pot that I was aware of. None of the soldiers even, and I was one of only, I think at one time I was probably one of only 2 returning Vietnam vets assigned to Fort Riley, Kansas at the time, to the mechanized division out there, the infantry division. They didn't even really know what to do with me. But nonetheless, I never smoked again once I got back to the States, until I got out of the Army. Came back, I was in Kentucky, and I don't know if it was my brothers or somebody else who turned me on at that point. It may have been somebody else. I don't know that they were doing anything at that time. But I was living in an apartment in Kentucky, in Louisville, Kentucky, with 2 guys from Arkansas. And there was a bunch of people around. We were all youngsters living in this area, downtown Louisville. And it could have been there. But then later, a couple years go by, occasionally, but then not a couple years, I guess, in 71, we did some traveling around, and I got to know the hippie culture a bit. But as I grew and aged, I became more and more enamored of marijuana. I liked what it did. I liked the fact that I didn't feel like it was an addictive drug. And at this point, by 1973 or 74, I had tried a little bit of everything at some point or another. There was just too much out there. I had, some very, very interesting and scary experiences with LSD. I tried heroin a couple times, realized what a great drug it is, and I never did it again. And I didn't even really do it, truthfully. But I mean, I did it, but I did the leftovers from somebody else. I didn't. Nobody, took a spoon and heated up heroin and gave it to me because it was too valuable and at that time, you just didn't come by it very often, or well, you did if you wanted it, but it wasn't something that you gave away to friends. It was too expensive. It was too hard to come by. So if you're a junkie, the only thing left, if you wanted to have a friend be turned on to something, was to give him your cotton, and that was the term that was used at the time. Hey, give John the cotton on that, and let him see what he likes. So I did that a couple times, 3 total. And even at that, I was, what was left over was enough to convince me that is the drug of choice. Heroin. It's no wonder there's so many addicts out there. And I never liked speed. I didn't like cocaine. I didn't like speed. I liked downers. I liked, at the time there were desbutyls and imbutals and lots of other stuff, and Toyol and glue, and there was lots of drugs around in the early 70s, just tons of them. However, I was always, well, at the time I was probably drinking some too. There was always wine. When you couldn't get anything else, you could get whacked on wine. Boone's Farm apple, Boone's Farm strawberries, whatever. Whatever cheap pop wine was at the time, that's what. Nowadays they got pop near beer. But anyway, so that's but I grew and grew to love pot more than anything. I stopped drinking of any kind. I haven't been drunk in 35, 40 years. I don't even remember the last. I've been high a couple times on alcohol, but I haven't been drunk. And Jesus, I can't remember when. But I do enjoy a good pipe or a joint. I love pot. I grew to love it more and more and more as time went by. In the mid 70s, I was living here, actually in Hilltown, on a farm not far away from where I am right now, and we had a big pot dealer move onto the property at one point. And there was a 40-acre property, and he rented a big house in the back, and he was importing Mexican and Colombian, and in big quantities, really big quantities. We were like the ones of us, the people that were living on the farm itself, and who were just eking out a living, so to speak. Howard and people, the friends, all musicians, and it was we were hippies. We had a hippie lifestyle. We lived on a hippie farm. We were hippies. Yeah, there's no two ways around it. we hung out at the Hilltown Inn. Ed and Teresa Michaelitis. That was those years. But smoked a lot of pot, and I continue to do. The problem for all of that time and all of those years, after discovering marijuana and then later becoming really enamored of marijuana, and especially better marijuana. I mean, it wasn't long before you realize that there's grades of everything. And so you're always chasing the next best thing, whatever it is, and you're always on the hunt. And that lasted for years. Actually lasted until I met Susan. And I was tapering back a bit at the time, so it was no big deal. She knew I smoked pot, and there's no, I don't keep secrets from anybody. And she also knows that I like it, and I believe it should be legal, and that at the very least medical marijuana. But I didn't even realize that at the time. I mean, come on, 30 years ago, medical marijuana never was a part of my vocabulary. My vocabulary was concerned with when can I get a next quarter, or when can I get a next half, or whatever. But raising my kids, I did not get very high very often at all. Occasionally, with friends, with Walter, some different things, but not very often. However, over the course of that, I did manage to acquire a little stash that I kept here at the house, in seal meal pouches. Some of them were pretty old by the time they got around to being utilized. But that's when I got sick a couple of years ago. Um, that's when I used my own pot to help with my symptoms, and it worked. And so then I had to go out and find a source again. I hadn't had a source or pot for years, but that's not a hard thing to come by. So, and then through the course of that, as we moved into that, now this is after, I mean, come on, 40 years of searching for pot, 50 years for searching for pot, really. Um, I mean, there's a lot of time in there where there's really no searching going on, but there was a lot of time when there was. But that was the mark of it back then. That's what you did. You if you're a pothead and you like pot, you went out and you searched for it and looked for a connection, see what you get. It's Hawaiian, but there was no, like there is today. There's no, oh, this is 26%, THC, the CBDs. There was nothing, none of that. It was just, well, can we smoke it? Do I get a buzz? Do I get a really good buzz? Do I get a crappy buzz? Do I get no buzz at all? I mean, you don't even know what you got until you take a toke. These days, and now, especially after I got sick, and then I learned that Pennsylvania was going to be a medical marijuana state, and my pain management doctors were part of that. They were part of their focus was on getting medical marijuana approved in the state of Pennsylvania. And so when I went to them, and of course they signed off, and I got my license, and I've been able to buy pot now legally at dispensaries. Actually, it was interesting in Pennsylvania. You can go to any dispensary. You're not locked into anything, just like more than you're locked into a drugstore for your normal, everyday prescription drug. And it's a revelation because at this point now, I went out and I have studied pot. I have tried so many of the new ways of inhaling THC. Again, we're in Pennsylvania, we don't have edibles, but we do have concentrates, lots of different sugars, and just tons of concentrates, tons of oils, tons of stuff that are prepackaged and ready to smoke. However, for me, they're just so harsh that I am spending most of my time coughing instead of getting relief. But anyway, that's my history of pot. So I have 50 years. I've smoked a lot of it. I've smoked it with friends, by myself. I mean, there's no reason for it not to be legal and regulated in this country. None whatsoever. They did it in Canada, big time. They're doing it in states around this country. If Donald Trump wants to get himself reelected, all he's got to do is do one thing, and that's just completely legalize marijuana. He'll get everybody's vote because that's the one thing that is necessary for a better and a more justified society. Taking away the criminality of pot is just, well, it's going to cost the jail keepers a lot if we do that. And that's probably the reason it hasn't been done yet. The jail keepers are there to make money. They build jails, they expect them to be filled with people. Anyway, that's it for the night. I've got 20 seconds left to close it out. I'm not sure, how we work on. I'm not real good with the countdown stuff. But just a few seconds left. So take care of each other. Good night. Have a good one.